It all started with this comment: run for 10 hours straight or give away $200. And you won't believe what happened.
I'm not gonna lie, at breakfast, I was really dreading this. As a kid born with asthma, I was never really close with running, to say the least. But there is something that I do know for sure. The human body is capable of doing a lot more than we imagine, and it's often our mind that holds us back. But I was really uncertain about the process. I figured it'd be tough. I figured it would hurt a lot, but my question is, how much? While I was making my breakfast, making sure I had enough energy to keep me going for a while, this is the question that was constantly running through my head. But if you know me, you know I'm up for a challenge, and I was gonna do whatever it takes. I've heard stories of people running so far that they break their feet. So to hopefully prevent something like this, I threw on some compression socks and got ready to go. Right now, it was around noon, and it was slowly sinking in how long I'd actually have to run. To put it into perspective, most people only work for 8 hours at a time, and you know how long and tiring that could sometimes feel. But despite everything, I was off. It started off easy, you know, at least for the first few minutes. I decided to pace myself to make it at least a little bit easier, but pretty soon, all that changed. I'll get back into that in a second, but what I really find amazing is human potential. As I said earlier, I used to have asthma, pretty severe asthma that would sometimes send me to the hospital. And because of this, I didn't start running until just a few months ago. Every single time I'd run, even just a little bit, I would struggle to breathe after. But as I did it more and more, it got better and better. It really shows how well we could adapt to our environment. By this point, I'd made it to the forest and already starting to feel sore. I knew I wasn't even halfway and it was already feeling too much. But I told myself that the only thing I could do is just keep pushing forward, so that's what I did. The good news is that before I finished the run, I had a little surprise for myself. So rather than focusing on how much longer I had to go until the end, I decided to focus on that instead. Before I get to that part though, I figured I'd meet up with a friend who I knew would be super excited to run with me. So I quickly ran back to the house where I knew he would be waiting for me. And sure enough, Cisco was really happy to tag along. But while he might have been enjoying himself, that was becoming much less of the case for me. I was starting to sweat and I still had a ridiculous amount of time until I finished. By this point, my feet, hip flexors, and my knees hurt with every single step. And not to mention, it was also starting to get a lot colder. But little did I know, it was gonna get significantly worse than I thought. I was extremely hungry as well, but it was time for that little surprise I promised myself. I did, however, have to run to it though. Almost an hour later, and I was at Subway. Not sponsored, by the way. But my stomach was growling, so I thought I'd reward myself with a bunch of food. The 2 or 3 minutes that I was in there may have felt like the best rest of my life. I knew I had a lot more to run, but I was past the halfway part, and right now, I could only focus on my food. It was a great distraction, but only a few moments later, it was all gone. Suddenly, everything became a million times harder. It was getting dark, it was getting late, it was getting cold. Every step I took from this point started to hurt. My pace was severely starting to drop, and by this point, I'd almost run the distance of a marathon. And I still had to keep running. I kept telling myself over and over in my head that I wasn't gonna stop. This was absolutely insane, but I had to keep going. I wanted to see that timer hit 10 hours straight. A few months ago, I couldn't even imagine trying this, let alone making it this far. I was almost at the finish line. I just had to push myself a little bit further. And with every muscle in my body hurting, I finally pulled back up to my house. I reached into my pocket to pull out the timer that said 10 hours. I was so excited, but mostly just to go in and sleep. You really can do anything you put your mind to. Let me know what challenge I should try next.